Well, the big news today is this Golden Dome talk. Now, you haven't heard a whole lot of Golden Dome programming throughout your entire life, but it's something that kind of echoes like old Ronald Reagan setting up what they call it, the Star Wars Strategic STI, whatever that stood for. So let's talk about this defense shield, because do we need to be defended against missiles? Absolutely. Should we take money from people in the form of taxation and spend that on defense? Absolutely. It's one of the few constitutional things the government does. But do we need this one? Do we need it now? Do we need it for this price? Because I am all for defense, but there is definitely such thing as spending too much money on defense, or money spent on defense that's not really worth it or needed. Because I don't see a whole lot of people asking, how effective is it? Now, we don't know because it hasn't been built yet. But don't we already have a missile defense system? And why is that one not good enough anymore? Don't we already have a system that shoots down any incoming missiles? Do we really need to spread it and make it bigger or make it higher or whatever we're doing with it? How bad do we need it? And then there's some other sort of diplomatic questions, which I think are secondary to those initial questions. Like, what do our allies think about it? What do neutral countries think about it? What do our adversaries think about it? I mean, these are considerations, but they're all way secondary to what does the system do? How effective is it? How bad do we need it? And what is the financial cost? You know, we've spent over $1 trillion developing this fighter jet that we've never really used in a combat scenario. And the scary part is we may never use it in a combat scenario. It's just money that if we hadn't spent any of it, we wouldn't have known any difference in our defense. But we definitely would have noticed when $1 trillion isn't sucked out of your economy and put in the front pocket of defense contractors. And so one of the things you can't do is go ask Lockheed Martin if we should have a $175 billion missile defense shield. Yes, this is the people that would build it. Don't go ask them. Saw Fox News do that today. I'm like, what do you think they're going to say? Yeah, no, please, keep your $175 billion. We're doing just fine over here. But is this something where we're going to be so focused on missiles, but the next war is going to be fought with drones, and we don't have an adequate system for that? Not all defense spending is good, and I think everyone can agree for that. My mind is open to being changed. I need to hear some people who know more than I do about this talk about it and answer some of the questions, though. How do we really need this? What do we do now if someone shoots a missile at us? Does it just hit Omaha or whatever? We know a Chinese spy balloon can float over at any time. That doesn't make me feel better. But don't we already have a missile defense system? Why isn't that good enough? Someone explain that to me. I want to hear that granular level of discussion before I make my final decision. Because right now, $175 billion, we don't have that. We still have an almost $2 trillion annual deficit. And I thought the whole point of ending these forever wars, of getting out of Afghanistan and wrapping things up in Iraq and getting Ukraine to settle down and Israel, Gaza to settle down, so we don't have to spend that money anymore. It's not good to stop spending that money so we can go spend it elsewhere. We need to not spend it. We need to leave it in the hands of the people and not filter it through D.C. It's a terrible pattern that keeps happening over and over. One piggy bank for the defense contractor shuts down, and another one opens up. Well, we got to pull out of Afghanistan. That was a good gravy train we had going for 20 years. And almost immediately we had a flare up in Ukraine. Oh, good. So for the next 3 years, we spent about $175 billion on Ukraine defense. And what do we want to spend on this missile defense now that Ukraine's wrapping up? $175 billion? That's an odd coincidence. So I am open to being talked into this. But as it stands right now, I do not like the sound of the Golden Dome. I haven't had anyone explain what was wrong with the previous one. Here's I have a quick statement from Donald Trump yesterday on the Golden Dome, and I'd like to hear more, really.
I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term.
So do we need a Golden Dome? 800-288-9227. The real question is, do we need to pay? Is it worth $175 billion of your tax dollars for this Golden Dome? Because if we get to have the Golden Dome for free, I would take it right now. I would say, okay, sure, that sounds good. Golden Dome it is. If it was $100, I would take it. 100,000, yeah. A million, yes. 100 million? Well, wait a second. I don't know. Do we really need it? $1 billion? We need to have a talk. And so we're way past the we need to have a talk phase. It's $175 billion. And I am not like saying something that's antithetical to the base of the conservatives out there. You know, the average WBAP listener, we're all pro-defense and we aren't scared of military spending. But I'm going to try and make Ronald Reagan give you a better case than I just did.
This woman said that you go to the polls and you ask the people, do they want some social service, some program the government can give? And the people in the polls are apt to read and say, hey, that sounds good, yeah. But she says that isn't exactly accurate. She says put a $100 bill in each person's hand and then show them the program and say, now, isn't that a nice program? Do you want it? Give me the $100. And she says, see what the poll says then, and how many people hang on to the $100 instead of the program.
So let's do that. So this is going to be paid for by the taxpayers. There's about 340 million of us in America. About half of us don't pay any in taxes. So really about what? Let's go ahead and make it a round number, 170-something million taxpayers. And if this is a $175 billion project, this is more than $1,000 out of your backside. Would you have $1,000 drafted out of your bank account right now in exchange for this Golden Dome missile program? But let's ask someone who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. Dr. Jeff Brodeur from Rigaku back on the show. He is an expert in chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, all that good stuff. And he probably has a good answer to the question I was asking in the first segment. I know you didn't get to hear it, Dr. Jeff, but without the Golden Dome, what does our missile defense system look like now?
Hey, sir, thanks again for having me on again. We have limitations. We have blind spots, and we don't have persistent surveillance. The Chinese demonstrated that when they circumnavigated a hot air balloon through the southern hemisphere. Most of us knew that was a vulnerability because their projected threat was coming through the northern hemisphere, and they went through completely undetected. The challenge that we have right now is that we have too many blind spots in our systems, the sensors, the shooters, and our sensors and shooters are sort of a quilt of different capabilities. They're not networked in the traditional sense. In other words, if I've got a sensor in Alaska, it's not gonna sense or warn me that a missile launch in North Korea has happened halfway across the world until that vehicle reaches the level of the curvature of the Earth, because our sensors are basically line of sight. And so by then, the missile is already en route. If you're on the east coast of the United States, you're in a good position because that missile will have to travel across the United States to hit the target, which gives us more time and more opportunity to interdict that. In my world, almost all of those vehicles are nuclear weapons capable. So it would be unlikely for a foe or a nefarious actor to launch something that expensive just to have a conventional explosive on the end of it. And don't forget, we're challenged nowadays with both legacy projectiles, missile systems, and the next generation. The Russians demonstrated in Ukraine that they have a supersonic missile capability. So we've got to account for everything that was manufactured in 1956 and 2025. And right now, we're not prepared to do that. We don't have the coverage. I think it's important for your listeners and everybody to understand that while we may feel comfortable in the continental United States, the governor of Hawaii is not so comfortable. That's still part of the United States. And all the missiles launched from North Korea, they can certainly touch Guam, and they're getting pretty close if they haven't already to reach in Hawaii. I would tell you that the definition of a threat is having both the capability and the intent to do damage. We know nation states have the capability. Managing their intent is pretty difficult to do.
So let's talk about the cost. $175 billion. Does that sound a little high to you?
It depends on whether or not you want to be safe. It is for me. I don't want a missile landing in my house or my backyard, or in my neighborhood. And I will tell you that the network of systems and sensors is going to overlap into different mission sets. What do I mean by that? Long ago will be the days when somebody from South America can launch an aircraft carrying illicit cargo or people, low level, avoiding the radar, and come through the southern coast. We'll have persistent surveillance of all of that. The other thing it's going to do, it's going to generate jobs and employment in the United States from across a number of industries, not necessarily, not only the sensors and the shooters, but all the hardware that is associated with that, right? We need AI to do part of that. So the chips, and the beautiful constraint about this package in my mind is everything has to be manufactured in the United States, which is a huge leap in how we do material acquisition in Department of Defense right now. We do have parts and pieces that are manufactured by other countries that we have to quality control before we put that on our jet aircraft.
All right, we're talking with Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku Analytical Devices. What do our allies think about it, and what do our adversaries think about it?
Well, our adversaries absolutely hate it because it takes away a number of weapon systems that were once upon a time viable to hit the United States, and they don't have to launch it; they just have to threaten to do it in the name of diplomacy and to try to influence our decisions. Allies are going to absolutely love it. I think this, depending how this thing plays out, it might overlap or replace in some places the need for the nuclear umbrella. So if our allies or friends of the United States decide that they want to cooperate with us, but a principle of that is to be covered by the Golden Dome, we can do that as well and protect them from providing them some missile defense.
So this sounds a lot like the Iron Dome that Israel has. How do they compare?
Yeah, so that's our system, and the Iron Dome system is limited. It looks at specific threats, in other words, missile type 1, 2, or 3, and it's constrained by time, or space. I mean, it only goes so far out. The Israeli Iron Dome version, I would say, is version 1.0. President Trump is talking about leaping to version 4.0 for us. But what the Israelis have is suffice and sufficient for what threat they face.
Well, Dr. Jeffrey, you are a great person to talk to on a day like today. I appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
All right, Dr. Jeff Brodeur from Rigaku Analytical Devices. David Canton, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the Golden Dome, sir?
Hey, James, I would fund it absolutely. I understand that our systems are a bit outdated technologically, and with the new hypersonic and able to steer around to evade systems, it's coming on faster. With AI, it's going to be accelerated even more. So I think we actually need to invest in something newer, just like Air Force One being so old. Our systems are old.
Let's not use the term invest. Let's go ahead and say spend the money.
Okay, spend the money.
Okay. What would be too...
My wife and my daughters and my kids live here. Yeah, defend it.
Okay. What would be too expensive for you?
Well, I say somewhere between take it out of the existing budget, because we have a lot of futuristic things coming up, like the new F-47. You know what I mean? That's going to be expensive. But there's no cost you can compare with defense of your family.
Yeah, but...
I love guns,
okay,
I will defend my family to the end.
So what if it was $10 trillion? You would still want the Golden Dome?
If it would save the life of Americans, like on citywide global scale, yes.
Okay, but that's not the option. The option is spend $10 trillion on the Golden Dome, and with the likelihood that maybe it could save a city. Right now, we have missile defense. If our cities are just wide open right now, then what are we spending $1 trillion a year on right now?
Have you looked up and seen the age of our defense now?
Yeah. That frequently comes up in these discussions. But listen, what this echoes for me was the SDI that Reagan proposed. He wanted to spend untold billions and billions of dollars, and that was the 1980s money. It never happened. And there were a lot of people saying the same thing that you're saying now. Well, we need to be safe against these missiles from other countries. Do you know how old our systems are? Do you know how vulnerable we are? We have to do this because technology moves forward, and no cost is too much for the safety of the American people. We didn't pass it. No cities blew up. So it was a waste of money, or it would have been a waste of money that all these people were claiming was so vital to our national defense. It turned out to be not vital at all.
Well, back in the day, so was investing in nuclear weapons, and that never happened. We never had global nuclear war. But the deterrent is there. And just like what you've seen in Israel, Iran launched 300 missiles in one evening. They literally carpet bombed the trajectory of those missiles would have carpet bombed the entire state of Israel, or country of Israel.
Yeah.
If somebody was to launch that kind of attack on America, we could not defend it.
I think we could.
Not with the assistance.
I think we could. And who would do it? There's still mutually assured destruction. Who would do it?
Have you looked at the amount of our interceptors that we have? Our ICBM interceptors, we're limited like 30, 50 at a site.
Oh, David, I have no idea how many ICBM interceptors. I can't pretend to know that level of detail. But this is good discussion. Let me talk to some other people here, David. You made some great points. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks, James.
All right. Let's go to Tim in Grand Prairie. You're on WBAP. What do you think about the Golden Dome, sir?
Hey, James, I have to agree with the other caller. I would do anything for my family. And, a long time ago, they wanted to do the Star Wars system.
Yeah.
And we shot that down and didn't do it. And we needed that a long time ago.
Oh, did we? Because what negative consequences have been visited upon us in the last 40 years because we didn't have that system?
Well, you can think of a lot of negative.
None. No city's got...
9/11 was one of them. We could have possibly shot down those planes before they even came into our airspace. That's one of them. But then at the same time, we could have paid for this missile defense system back then. It would have been a heck of a lot cheaper than it will be now.
Are you kidding? And we'd be replacing it again right now. They'd be like, listen, Star Wars is now 40 years old. We've got to spend 170. There's always going to be an excuse.
They'd be able to integrate it. They'd be able to integrate it, and it wouldn't cost as much as to the taxpayers now as what it would have been back then. You can sit there and upgrade systems left and right, and it doesn't cost as much if you upgrade a system as if you were to build it brand new today.
Okay, so is there an upper limit? What if the Golden Dome was $10 trillion? Would you still support it?
When it comes down to a supersonic missile coming into Dallas,
just say yes,
and blowing up
just
hundreds
say yes.
and thousands of people.
Just say yes. You have no limit on what you're willing. Someone can get out of you if they tell you it's for the defense of your family. You just turn your brain off, open your wallet, and say, "Come rape the taxpayers as hard as you want. I'm scared." Because that's what it sounds like.
It's not being scared. It's not.
It is.
There's a difference between being scared and naive. And the question here is, do you want to be naive and take thousands of people's lives, possibly your children's or your grandchildren's or someone down the line in the future when you can pay for it now?
Let me try this
for the future.
I get what you're saying. Let me try this. If you're thinking about your children and grandchildren, you're going to grind this economy to a halt and leave them poorer than you were if we spend $10 trillion a year on missile defense. That's like a third of our gross domestic product.
No, sir.
And listen, the converse of this is if we leave the trillions and trillions of dollars back in the economy, it will grow and they will continue to be wealthier in successive generations. Do you want your kids more likely to live in a trailer house or a 4,000 square foot mansion in 30 years, sir?
The mansion doesn't matter to me so much. I'd love them to live comfortably, but the fact is, we can't be naive onto this because China is building their defenses and so on down the line.
I'm not saying be naive, but not wanting to. Again, how is this different than SDI in the 80s? How is this different? Spending a ton of money that could have grown our economy on something that we obviously didn't need because we didn't get hit by a missile. Your airplane example doesn't work. You don't have one missile strike on America since we didn't do SDI.
Okay. Because we didn't do it, though, now we have to spend more money in order to do it because prices of the technology have gone up.
That's the opposite of logic. That's the opposite of logic. That's like if I had a missile defense system. No one shot a missile at us. Well, now we really need a missile defense system now that no one's shooting missiles at us. And in fact, for the entire history of missiles, we haven't had one missile shot at America. And we need to spend 107. And there's no limit to what you're willing to spend. Like, you can maybe talk to me and say, 200 billion is my cutoff, or 500 billion is my cutoff. But you people that just say limitless, no matter what the cost is, whatever program the defense contractors come up with, they can go rape the taxpayers for it because my family. That's not a logical argument. My family. Don't even bother calling, the lines are full because everybody hates me today. I love it when this happens. Terry in Oklahoma, you're on the James Show. What do you think about the Golden Dome?
Hey, James, got a couple of points. The first one is you keep talking about $175 billion like it's going to be $175 billion out of your pocket today. This expenditure is over 10 years, so that's $82 out of your pocket every year, or 22 cents a day, or something like that. So I'm not sure whether I'm for this or against because I don't know enough about its potential effectiveness.
Well, okay, hang on.
Let's
I think
about how we do it.
Okay. Yeah. You know, you're bringing a good point, but I think that's going to work against the project because right now they say it'll cost $175 billion. Donald Trump says, no, it'll only cost $125 billion. I'm doing something different. But the first appropriation they're asking from Congress is $25 billion. So it's not going to be $17 billion a year for 10 years. Right now, it's going to start out at $125 billion. But also, there is the pattern that a lot of people have noticed whenever you have these defense programs that the costs balloon and they double and triple and quadruple. And the stealth fighter jet that started out being a $600 million project is now a $34 billion project or got over $1 trillion. You know how the cost overruns are pretty much infinite. So I think the $175 billion is kind of a low number to use.
You may quite be right. The government doesn't do very much efficiently, and I never saw a government program come in on budget. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll go up from there. But I just wanted to make it clear that it wasn't going to be all in the first year. And on the other thing I wanted to say was about the whole Star Wars thing.
Yes.
Back when, in the 80s, I mean, I'm old enough to remember, but back in the 80s, all the experts were telling Reagan that the Star Wars program he was suggesting was really impossible. And technologically, at the time, it was. It wasn't really about that. What it was about was getting the Russians scared enough to spend themselves into oblivion. And that worked.
Right, and so we need to learn the lesson from history. Let's not spin ourselves into oblivion chasing defense projects at the expense of our economy.
Well, I agree, and I agree with that, but Star Wars was expensive, but we could afford it at the time. Russia trying to keep up.
I know, but the lesson is to do what we did in the 80s and turn down the big spending project, not to do what Russia did, embrace defense spending and collapse your economy and break up the Soviet Union. I think, I don't know, does not everyone else see that? Steve Weatherford, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the Golden Dome?
Well, you bring up two very good points I like. I want to talk about 5 points, two of them that I like about you. One, let's spend the money. And yes, it's going to be $500 billion to $1 trillion when it's done. But Washington said peace through strength, which is golden for all times. But if we can get this Gold Dome in place and neutralize the ability of foreign adversaries to hit the U.S. with ICBMs with nukes on it, I am all in for that one. Now, we're seeing the first 2 years of Ronald Reagan's presidency replayed with this second term of Trump. So we start building the dome. It's an arms race, trying to keep up. Their economy implodes like happened to the Soviet Union. That's all well and good. I don't really want to see the Chinese economy implode. But, boy, I tell you what, once we start building this thing, guess who's going to want to negotiate downsizing of nuclear weapons? Russia and China, just like we saw under Reagan and Gorbachev, and that's good. I mean, I say let's get this thing going and see one, we're going to end up with a protective system, and two, we may not have to spend that much money to get them to back off building more and more nuclear weapons that could hit us.
All right, hey,
back to your point.
Hang on, I'm way over time. You want to continue this in about 6 minutes? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, homeowners, James Parker here for BlueRibbonDFW.com. Blue Ribbon Roofing's coming out to my house on Friday. Why? I need a roof inspection. I have a board that looks a little suspect at one of my gables, and I'm friends with John Hopkins, and I asked him about it. He's like, no, that's exactly the kind of things we do. Because they don't just do roofs. They do other kinds of carpentry and the work on your house, or if you need a deck or something to that effect. But I'm about to do what I tell you to do on a regular basis. I got on BlueRibbonDFW.com. I called John, Tish, and Trevor, the family who runs Blue Ribbon Roofing. I scheduled my free home inspection. And all it's going to take is about an hour or so of my time on Friday. If they don't find anything wrong that needs to be repaired, then I have a baseline set for if I do have future roof issues. We have some leverage against the insurance during the claims process. If we do find something wrong, I'll get on top of it before it balloons into something bigger, and we'll talk about some fixes for it. And also, if I do need a whole new roof, I'm going to tell them I heard it on the James Show, and I'm going to get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade. So go check it out. I'll tell you about my experience after it happens on Friday. And in the meantime, you can go read some of the 5-star reviews from Google on BlueRibbonDFW.com. That's BlueRibbonDFW.com. I've seen a lot of reporting saying it's going to be $175 billion. He said in a statement earlier today, $125 billion. It's been your experience, though, that you can pretty much double that first number. That'll probably be what happens in real life. But do we absolutely need it? I doubt it. We're living just fine without it. We heard about the Reagan's SDI that never got passed, and it's a lot of the same arguments that I remember and you remember hearing in the 80s are being rehashed again here a generation later. I remember. We were told the exact same things. No amount of money is too much money to keep my family safe. Well, it was too much money. Every cent of it would have been too much money. Your family was safe. No missile attacks on America. And we didn't spend any of that money. So they were wrong. They were wrong when they told you in the 80s that we absolutely needed to spend infinity amount of money because our technology is behind. You don't know how old our system is. We have all kinds of holes, and there's a big, scary, the Russians out there. Well, the Russians weren't big and scary. They were just a few months away from collapsing. And we still hadn't had any missiles hit us. So no, until we balance the budget, the military is going to have to get by on the $1 trillion a year it gets. If that's not enough, figure it out. Then it's not, if it's so important, if it's a matter of life and death, then that should be the first $175 billion spent out of the $1 trillion Pentagon budget, shouldn't it? Is there no limit to how much, how fast some of you people will jettison your fiscally conservative principles for defense? 800-288-9227. This is Steve in Weatherford. You're on WBAP. Let me guess, you disagree.
Yes, but I do want to compliment you on hitting the nail on the head, which is this. You can build the Golden Dome and all of its good attributes, but you have to fund it with waste, fraud, abuse, and pork cuts annually until you get the thing built.
So by not spending another dime more out of the defense budget, I would be on board with that. And in fact, some of you people who've been listening to the show for a long time, you actually know how to manipulate me and win arguments with me. Robert over here won me over too, just like you did, Steve. He said, would you rather have high-speed rail in Texas from Dallas to Houston or the Golden Dome for $175 billion? I said, oh my God, give me the Golden Dome in a second. Oh, please, anything but high-speed rail. Just anything. So, yeah.
Keep in mind, we have 11 aircraft carriers and 14 nuclear tipped.
No one's beating us up in a fight. We're not in grave danger. Who's going to take us out? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Why is no one bothering America? Because we can dictate the end to any fight anybody starts with our Ohio-class submarines. End of discussion. We dictate how that fight ends.
Agreed. I'm not scared of any of these fools. Thank you very much, Stephen Weatherford. Good call. And very nice way to disagree with me without with making me like you by the end of it. David in Fort Worth, you're next up on the James Show on WBAP. What do you think, David?
Oh, man. I'm not worried about fools. I'm talking about the martyrs. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, I want a chance to shoot it down. I mean, what chance we have now?
We shot down everything Iran launched at Israel. They launched 200 drones, missiles, rockets, projectiles of some sort at Israel. What was that, last April? And we just shot them all down.
You're right. How many of those were ballistic missiles?
I don't know.
Yeah, and that and the hyper. I'm just going. If there's an idiot that has his thumb on the button that can launch a missile that has a nuclear warhead onto America's soil, I would like to have a chance to shoot it down. I don't need 100%.
Agreed.
And the money that we put in, at least we get the taps open, but we are very conservative. We will try to control it, but if the faucet's closed and it's difficult to open in emergency, we're not going to be able to do anything.
Well, let me go a little bit further than that then. Like, not only am I not scared of a nuclear missile being shot at us from Iran, I think we would knock it down. I think even worse than Iran, as far as their zealotry and sort of Muslim fundamentalism, would be Pakistan. Pakistan has more terrorists in it than Iran does.
Good point. Good point. They'll lie to us too.
Well, also they've had nuclear weapons for decades, and we haven't had to worry about that. Why? Because in the end, that wouldn't work out too well for them. Even if they could deliver it, it's a assured destruction. It's a war that they're going to lose. So we have the deterrent to stop these people. I don't think we should bend over backwards and try and keep Iran from getting the nuke forever. At some point, we have to accept the fact that is going to be common knowledge in 50 to 100 years, and anyone who wants nuclear weapons is going to have them. You can't keep knowledge bottled up like a genie in a lamp. It's out, and it's only a matter of time. So we need to sort of adjust the world accordingly. And judging by how Pakistan has behaved since they've gotten nuclear capabilities, it's not that scary.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But I also think about the money we spent to get to the moon, and that money came back to us through other things. I'm just going. I know that throwing money at this might be throwing it down a black hole, but I also know that from history that we got more money or more technology from the space race. I mean,
well, that's debatable.
I don't mind the race.
We would have had Velcro anyway. So what did we really end up with? Tang? Well, okay, Tang's pretty good too. All right. Good call there, David in Fort Worth. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Anyone else want to disagree with me? Y'all are very polite about it. Isn't that nice? We can disagree and no one gets called Nazi or racist or hateful names. Thank you for being very grown up about this. I'm James Parker. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.